Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Art Study of You. I am your host, Cameron Gilmore. The man you are looking at on screen is a four-time Mr. Universe, Neale Cranwell. Before we go into the rest of the accolades, I need to come out and ask this question because it is super, super important for everybody to understand. Neale, as you were laying in the hospital bed, being told that you basically, never going to walk again, couldn't feel from the neck down, I have two questions. One, how did you end up in the hospital in the first place? And then two, what was your initial thought process after hearing the diagnosis from the doctors?
Well, yeah, thanks for the introduction. Got it right second time round. So all your viewers know he's not perfect.
That's right.
Okay, so I had a motorbike accident. So I used to ride a super sports bike, and I actually used to be in the Met Police, which is like London's version of the police. And I'd ride to work every day. And so I'd commute on a bike, and I got hit head on by someone pulling out of a, people don't look for motorbikes, but motorbikes go really fast, really quick. So as much as, every motorbike cyclist out there will say, it's not us, it's the driver. At the same point, and I'm aware of that, but then bikes go like from 0 to 60 in seconds, So basically someone pulled out, but they didn't look to the right. They were looking to the left because they were coming across. Obviously, we drive on the left-hand side in the UK, so they were coming across, and I just went straight through the windscreen. There used to be an advert in the UK called, it was about motorbike health, and it was look left, look right, think bike. And it was to try and make people aware to look again to the right because of this happens a lot. And I hit the car so hard, I had an Arai helmet, which is one of the top brands you can get, split in half. Well, none of them things don't break, but they don't normally shatter. So it's split in half, and then the bike flipped over the car. I kind of just went through the windscreen and then come out the other side. Fortunately, there were, a load of people in London because there always is. So I got an ambulance really quickly. Don't remember much else other than that. But when I got to the hospital, I remember coming round and my arm, like my right arm, was sticking out at like an L shape. So like this bit here was pointing that way. And then a load of doctors and medics and orderlies, the guys that just push you about, they literally broke my arm back into a straight line whilst I was transferring into the hospital ward without any anesthesia or nothing, because they said that that's what they needed to do. And then I passed out again, obviously. and when I woke up, I had no feeling from my neck down. So the arm was an obvious problem, but what had happened is I'd shattered both my hips. I'd broke my arm in several places, broke my other hand, and I'd fractured my spine. And because of that, I woke up in hospital, and the only thing I could move was my eyeballs. And so that was what happened. And then, just the blind panic that when you wake up is, yeah, but I will be able to walk again. Yeah, but when will I be able to get up? Yeah, but when? And no one had any answers, and and they'd done all the scans. There was lots of fractures, and it would just depend on time. And so I had the operations that I needed to fix the broken bones and joints and issues. But, at the same time, I was in hospital for weeks and weeks and months, just getting bed bathed, getting taken to the toilet, just, losing all your faculties and just like allowing it, because I had no other choice. And to be honest, like, I've always believed in God, but I've never prayed to God until that moment. And that was when I really found God. And like probably loads of people, we reach out to him in our times of need when we should reach out to that higher purpose just because. But, it took that to kind of like bring me back to reality, which my reality prior to that was, all things that mean absolutely nothing when you haven't got your health. So material items, the next Range Rover, the newest house, leveling up. It was that, which we all kind of get sucked into, working towards greater, better things, which are nice. They're lovely. But all the money in the world, I tell all my clients, all the money in the world won't buy back time, and it won't buy back your health. And so they're the most two important things in life. And so it was probably, Cameron, the worst thing in the world that ever happened to me, because up until that point, I was probably going down a very shallow existence. And then it brought me back to reality, where the little things in life and getting a second chance, man, I was like born again. And it was in 2009. So I'm 46 now. So it's, you know, a good sort of, what's that, 15 years or so ago.
Wow. Okay, hold on. Where were you in your career when this happened? You're working for what we call the police department. Were you in bodybuilding? Were you in physical, peak performance, or were you just a typical guy driving a motorcycle? Where were you in your career, or where you were physically?
So I've actually been competing for nearly 3 decades, for 27 years. So that was obviously halfway through that point, pretty much. So I was competing still whilst I was in the police. It was like the Ronnie Coleman of the UK. Well, not quite, but he was a competing bodybuilder, if anyone doesn't know. And so I was competing then, and I was working towards my pro card as a bodybuilder then, and I'd won a Mr. Universe before then. And I'd won several like UK titles or world championships, which are still big events, but obviously Mr. Universe is the biggest amateur event you can win. And in my career, in terms of the police, I was working for an undercover like special unit, which I enjoyed at the time, and that was what I was doing. That was, you know, I had a lot of time off work. Fortunately, the police cover a lot of benefits with that sort of injury. But you know, the covering the cost of your mortgage and stuff like that, I was thankful for it. But at the end of the day, even having a house over your head, I remember lying in hospital and saying, I will give up absolutely everything I see, the roof over my head, you know, the car that I drive, things that we think are really important, just to be able to brush my own teeth again or wipe my own backside, you know, like, just please give me back some, you know, sanity and some, you know, some of these things we take for granted day to day. And up until that point, you know, I think it's really easy for many of us to look at mental health or issues with depression. But really, when you take something like that, it knocks them right out the park, because, you know, just to be able to have your faculties about you and be able to be in control of your own body, when you haven't for so long, it's so degrading, honestly. It's a very degrading motion. And, you know, once I got out of hospital and they released me, I had to go back to live with my mum as a 30-odd-year-old man, and she had to take me to the toilet and wipe my backside. And this is, you know, like, I haven't seen my mum like that since I was about 5, you know, so it's hard to get your head around it. And it was, you know, it was hard on both of us. Because I couldn't scratch my own nose without asking her to do it. You know, it was tough. Yeah.
Dang. Guys, listen to what he just said. Now, listen, those of you that are listening to this on, you know, Spotify and Apple and some of the other streamings, you need to go to the YouTube channel, because you can watch the frame of this man who's very massive that you're looking at. Watch as he goes through that, as he wishes to have his faculties back. Scratch your own nose. Your own mom at the age of 30 having to wipe your backside. You can see his energy shift, because he remembers going down that road of just being helpless and relying on other people. Here was a man who won Mr. Universe. It wasn't like he was some bum driving a motorcycle. He was competing at a high level, goes through a car window, and all that debilitated him for months and months and months. But I also love the point you meant about that mental health and the mental toll. I'm going to ask you this question. At any point during as your recovery process, did you slip into that notion of, if I'm not here, the world wouldn't care, or I just want to stop the pain? I could use supplements to stop the pain. Like, how did you not go through how did you get out of the dark place? Not go through, how did you get out of that dark place to start that recovery process, not just on the physical side, but on the mental side?
I think when I was at my worst in hospital, it was easiest, because when you're heavily sedated, when you're heavily in pain, that's the easiest point, because you're sedated, you're half asleep. It's when you start to recover to some extent that then thoughts start to fly around your head. Like, how long is this going to go on for? Will I be able to do this again? And will I be able to have my health back? And as a very physical, active person, like, I run for the county, I played football for the county. Like, in the UK, I was like one of those all-round sports kids that grew up in school and played, like, I suppose it's track and field at your school. He was the fastest runner in school. Like, I was very athletic. And the biggest, like, worst fear for me wouldn't be to die. It would be to have that functionality taken away from me. And that was exactly where I was at my worst place. So, I mean, my mindset was just, I'm not going to lie, you're going to fall into those realms where you're feeling down and depressed. And there was lots of, like, morphine for the pain, which helped. But there's a point where you don't want to be asleep. There's a point you don't want to sleep through your life. And there's a point where you want to fight back. And I remember getting to this kind of crossroad and realizing, like, now I can be that person that sits in the corner of the hospital and thinks, well, that's my life done, and be down and depressed. The surgeons that come along told me I'd have to learn to write again with my opposite hand, because my right arm was so shattered. They had to fuse it back together straight, so there was no flexibility. I'd have to learn to walk again in order to come off a wheelchair, in order to come off crutches. And it was just very, very long-ass slow physio. But every single step forward was a win. And I've always had that mentality that, when we look at what we could do in the past, like, I can't stand the people I run into in the gyms that used to be somebody. Like, no one cares about who you used to be. People care who you are today and who you will be. And so, like, I might have been able to bench press 200 kilos, but if I could just get myself out of bed now, that would be more important. So any movement, just wiggling my finger, the first time I got to wiggle my little finger was like the biggest win for me, better than winning Mr. Universe, right? So, like, it's taking the small wins and then taking that as a big achievement and a step in the right direction and focusing on that. And I remember telling the surgeons, because they said, listen, you're never going to be able to bodybuild again. Your career's over. You won't be able to lift weights again, because the way we've had to kind of nail your arms back together with plates and pins, you just won't have mobility. Like, the best we can do is try get you back on your feet. But, at this point, we don't know whether or when that will be. So I just remember lying there thinking, I'm going to prove you wrong. And, you hear this a lot, but those people with that mindset that you'll prove others wrong and you will achieve, your goal, like, that's all I could hone in on, because if I didn't, I know I would go down into a dark place. But like you said there's no, without darkness, there is no light. And I think we all have to experience some dark to enjoy the light that we get to live with.
Oh my gosh. Look, if you don't want to rip your shirt off at this point and just scream, you've got no pulse. Go check your pulse. I want to listen, guys. Let me run down the accolades, okay, up to this point. Neale's being humble. He gave us let me do this. Modelmayhem.com did an article on you, and this is where I pulled this from. Listen, he said, and I'm going to quote you, you've been competing in the UK, US, and Australia, multiple bodybuilding champions, including Mr. Titan 26 in 2006, 2007, NAC British champion 2008, and currently winner of WPF Mr. Universe 2009 and NAC World Champion 2010. Listen, this guy was at a peak. He was starting to increase. You do not get those accolades without putting in hard work. To go from that to being, I just would love to use my extremities by myself. Think of that. Think of how you have to push through that. It is absolute pure genius. Man, give me 1 or 2 points, Neale, that when you're coaching people and when they go and they start to get into this I can't attitude. I will tell my children, the F word is a bad word, 100%. Taking the Lord's name in vain, I do not deal with that. But when you say I can't, that's just up there. That's right there, equal with the F word. The word I can't, I trigger. Give me, through this experience, this first experience, because we've got a few others to talk about. This experience that you went through, elevation, now at the deepest level and back up. How then are you how do you empathize with your clients, but also extrapolate the best of them because of this experience that you went through?
Well, when I was younger, and like if you go back to around that time prior to that event, I was really hard-nosed. You either do it or you don't. You either want it or you don't. And if you're not willing to put in the work, then don't waste my time. I've got plenty of other clients that are willing to put in the work, and I was really hardballing people into, success. But you limit lots and lots and lots of people that way. Since having the accident, it made me reflect more greatly on the vast community of people that perhaps haven't got that same mindset. Like when someone tells me they can't go to the gym, they didn't make it 2 times this week, and they've only got a schedule of hitting the gym twice a week, I think, Jesus Christ, like I would have given anything to go to the gym twice a week. Listen, I'll get up at 4 a.m. and go to the gym twice a week if it means I could go when I was in that hospital bed. If it meant I'd have my energy back and my life back, who wouldn't? But you can't, it's very easy for you to say that unless you've gone through a big, hard notion like that to really smack you in the face and wake you up to life. So people do need nurturing in different ways. And I think with a lot of people, it just leans on having support and accountability. So I think it's great that when my clients know my background, they can say, wow, this guy's walked a life. He's lived it. He's come back from it. Not only once, but 2, 3, 4 times I've had big life-threatening injuries. That's just the first one of many that we'll get onto. But and I like in the UK, I've been competing for so long. People call me the Bionic Man. There used to be a series on TV. The geezer's rebuilt time and time again, and that's me. And every time I had an injury, though, I would just look at it as like, this is my chance to prove something back to myself, to take things up another level. Like, because you can freeball yourself into quite good shape. When you're already in shape, it's not too hard to stay there, but you can get complacent. So sometimes having these setbacks only made me a better version of me, which then allowed me to see how I could coach a better version of me onto other clients. And so for many, many people, small steps, that small step attitude that I mentioned earlier, that's the way that you move great boundaries. You need small steps. You need to make notes of them. You need to put them notes all over the place. So you've got a constant visual reminder of the small steps you want to achieve. And before you know it, them small steps are achieved and you get to the greater ones that you want to achieve. And you'll look back and see, wow, like how I've transformed. So, like I said earlier, every small step's a win. And that's why I try and get over to guys that have they can't drive past McDonald's without slipping in there, Take a different route to work. Let's remove the visual reminder that's causing you a problem. If it means you've got to add 2 minutes to your journey because you take a different route, take it. Because that change of action has no impactive decision that you've now got to deal with. And once you create that new habit after time, you don't want to go to McDonald's anymore. It's them simplistic things that I've worked out over time how to steer people around their boundaries. Because listen, not everyone out there is going to be Mr. Universe. Not everyone out there is going to be a bodybuilder or professional athlete. Most people aren't. Most people just want to live 5, 10 years longer. And why shouldn't you? And to be honest, the clients that I coach, and I've coached over 3,000 clients now over 27 years, so a hell of a lot of people. My most rewarding clients are those that have changed their lifestyle. So their Mr. Universe win is seeing their grandkids grow up. being there to actually join in with their grandkids and play in the park rather than be that old dad or granddad that's just too knackered and lazy to do anything with. Like, what good is that? Because you haven't looked at your health when you're in your 30s, 40s, and maybe early 50s and reclaim that. So them guys, I see massive changes, or bringing diabetes out of their life, or taking blood pressure back down. Like them to me now are my big wins. I still compete now, but to be honest, like, I get almost more reward from coaching people into excelling, like the new version of turning Cameron into Cameron 2.0.
Oh my gosh. Guys, masterclass. You have just learned, and we could stop here. We could call it a day. If you're listening to this, there are 2 points that he made that are super impactful. 2. Point number 1, small steps, small victories. The second one, which is just as big, if you're not writing it down, you won't do it. Did you catch that when he said, well, you only wrote it twice to go to the gym and you missed both times? The habit forming. If you want to create a habit, you got to write it down. If you want to create a goal, you have to write it down. If you want to change the way that you live, you have to write it down. Take a different route to work. I love that. If you want to be the best version of yourself, you have to write it down, because if you don't, you will never, ever, ever achieve it. Don't believe me? Go back, rewind it 6 minutes, 7 minutes, and listen to what Neale just said. If that's not a slap in your face, this isn't for you. I apologize. I probably shouldn't have said that. But you know what? It is what it is, and I'm sticking to it. You also said something I want to touch on, because you're not out of the woods. You weren't out of the woods. Back broke, pins everywhere, reconstruction on your hand. Now your body's starting to feel better. You're starting to do better. And this is a shout out to mirror.com or mirror.co.uk for this article they wrote on you. Quote, Neale in 2009 broke his back during a training exercise. The former policeman said, I cannot believe my luck. 1 minute I was training, doing deadlifts, and the next minute I felt something pull and I was on the floor in agony. The ambulance took me to the hospital where the doctor confirmed that my back was broken. I went on to recovery and get myself fit enough to join the Met Police and pass the fitness test fitness test. However, I then tore my bicep right off when tire flipping, strongman training, was in Ireland doing a seminar with your fellow bodybuilder and active channel presenter, Dean Ash. But the very same year, I recovered and won WPF Mr. Universe, which is a major title to win in any massive achievement that we're all proud of. Okay, what the heck? You just recovered from not being able to move, and now you hurt your back and tear your bicep? Please explain what the heck happened.
So I think once I slowly started recovering and had lots of physio and lots of acupuncture, like if anyone's out there with injuries or issues, acupuncture was absolutely gold for me to change how deep that can get into the muscle trauma and release it. You know, because when you have an injury, the muscle will tighten up. So when I broke my back, it was, it was a really painful experience, but not until I finished the set. So that deadlifting was actually part of a strongman medley event. So when I'd recovered from the bike accident, which took about 2 years, which is fast, I think, but felt like a lifetime, I needed a different angle to train towards, because I was told I couldn't bodybuild and stuff, and I needed something more refreshing. So strongman's a completely different way to train. Rather than you pump the weights till your muscles burn and you just got to put up with the pain for as long as you can, strongman, you lift one great big ass weight from point A to point B as fast as you can. So it's a more rewarding way to train in lots of ways, because in bodybuilding, it's probably the only sport that you don't do in training what you do on the day. Like on the day, you're in your spangly posing trunks, flexing about, right? You're not lifting any weights up.
Right.
In strongman, if you can lift this heavy ass weight across that line in 5 seconds, and you do that on the day, you'll win the race. So it's almost a fairer way of judging. Bodybuilding is very subjective. It's down to a panel of judges, someone's opinion. There's not a start and a finish line. So it can be very frustrating. So once I got back into, some form of health, I had a new life. I had a new start at being fit and physically active. And why shouldn't I take advantage of that? So I started looking at other ways to train. I still enjoyed, but I still bodybuilded as well, but I'd done strongman. So this medley of events was 4 events. So it was a tombstone carry, which is you carry a 20-stone tombstone, literally a tombstone, and you carry it for like 20 meters there and back, and then you deadlift, and then you pull a great big sled, and then eventually you do something called a duck waddle, which is a great big like steel drum with a tiny T handle that you got hold between your legs, and you waddle, you waddle, it's so heavy. And it was actually on that my back broke. I felt it click and go, but I had like 4 or 5 massive burly British bodybuilders screaming in my head, or strongmen, don't put that effing weight down, get across that line. And with all the adrenaline, I just kept going. When I got over the line and put the weight down, wow, like that was just game-changing pain that just soared up me and knocked me off my feet. Couldn't sit down, couldn't lie down, didn't know what to do myself. Went off to hospital. So I'd fractured my spine at the L1, L2, which is right at the bottom, but I'd also herniated 2 discs from doing it. So that was where the acupuncture helped, because it reduced the inflammation around them discs. But I had acupuncture and I saw physios for about 2 years of pain, like literally pain. And again, unfortunately, I was back on pain medication because I literally couldn't get out of bed. The worst time of day was the morning. Wake up and I was so stiff. And if I got going, it was okay. And then later on in the day, the back pain was immense. And the tablets to take down the pain were so strong, they would just, absolutely wipe you out. So you're either in pain or you're half asleep. So you've got very limited productivity, very hard to do any work. And there I am again, facing this whole ordeal of recovering, not knowing if my back will heal, not knowing if I'm going to have surgery. My mother actually was thrown off a horse when she was young and had back surgery, and she's had the worst time of it ever since. And so everyone in our family were like so put off by having back surgery, because we've seen her struggle for all her life since having it, that I was very, very precautious about having surgery. Till it got to the point 2 years later that I was so fed up and frustrated and depressed, in pain, that this was the second time round that depression really waved its flag at me and reared its ugly head. And I think pain medications are not good. They lead you down a path of depression anyway. So they're a quick fix, but a long-term downward spiral. But I was reliant on them, and like many people out there they get reliant on them, and it actually gets you quite depressed in themselves. But without them, I was in lots of pain. So that's, I've got an excuse, and that was where I was coming from. But unfortunately, it got to 2 years, and I was like, I'm really getting down in my life. I'm like, got no mojo, no motivation. Like, I didn't want anything to do with my marriage. I was just really unhappy because I was just living in pain. It's like, living with a toothache that's burning you all the time. So I booked in to see my osteo again. This time he's like, listen, we've been doing this work on you now for 2 years. I've spent a fortune every week with them. So, it's where do you want your quality of life? And I'm like, I'm going to have to gamble the quality of life on a back operation. So we booked a back operation to fix my back, which would be to put, plates on your spine to like basically your lower back L1 and 2 would now be solid. But it would appease the break. And then I booked in with the surgeon, and the day before surgery, I woke up, and all that praying to God, going to church since the first accident, had come back to pat me on the back and lift me up, because the day before, I'd woke up every day in the worst pain of my life, having to then knock a load of painkillers down. And I woke up and there was no pain. And I was like, what? This is weird. I can't remember this. My God, like, energy of you when you're not in pain, like that sort of pain, like the energy I had that day. So I went back to see my osteo. We'd done all the scans again, and the fracture had finally healed. So the pain had gone. So I cancelled the operation, but I was left with 2 slip discs. I've still suffered with them today. Obviously, you can't push them back in. So I have to have constant, like, ongoing treatment to just to appease that, so I can carry on training and stuff. But realistically, I was very, very fortunate because I could have booked that operation the week before, and then here I am now back from that, and I went on from that to win another Mr. Universe, the second one, which then, because of winning that, I started presenting on TV, which is what you mentioned with one of my other co-hosts, Dean Ash. And there was a Sky fitness channel called the Active Channel, and we both presented on that for years. And Ireland's very close to the UK, and they're really, really big into fitness. So they flew us over to do a weekend seminar. It was all red carpet. It was lovely. But whilst doing a training camp with all these Irish, like, competitive bodybuilders that want to, like, learn from us, I've done the silly thing that men do when we want to beat our chest and act like idiots. When, there's 2 great big farm tires there in the gym, which, gyms have these days for tire flipping. Mm-hmm. And none of the guys in the gym could do it. But obviously I've had experience doing strongman because I trained in it for a while. So I'm like, I can do that. Of course I can do that. So I flipped the tire, and then, but you can't do that again. Flipped it the second time, which it didn't go over. It fell back down. I grabbed it, just a knee-jerk reaction, and it just snapped my bicycle.
Okay, I need. My brain has exploded from what you just said. I want to ask this question. It's not always a fun topic for people to listen to, but that's okay. You said something that was very interesting. When you went through your first major recovery, the major issues, you started praying to God, and you went to him and you prayed, and you had since been praying to him up to that point and continued. The divine intervention that happened the day before, the night before a surgery that could have really altered the quality of life. Since that point, how has your view shifted on when you cast something to the universe? We'll call it God. When you cast it, the time, it may not be an instant reply. It may not be an instant, yes, you can have it, but it is a steady progression. How has your faith increased from now walking, now all using all your extremities and not having a back fused together with metal plates? How has your faith increased, and how are you able to share that with clients that you work with? Or if you don't, how do you help them say, cast it in the universe and it will come back?
I believe that one thing I can't believe or can't stand is preaching to people. So I don't believe in that. And we have these town criers that are out there preaching about God and stuff, and we have them in every city in the world. I'm sure you have them there. I don't believe in that. I don't think you can force anything down anyone's throat. And I think when the time's right for someone, it will present itself for that person. So, like, you could be a smoker, Cameron, and you want to quit, and I could tell you to quit, and I could give you all the reasons to quit. But until you decide that flick that switch in your head that you're going to do it, you won't convert and not smoke, or you won't convert to a faith or whatever it may be. So I've never pushed anything on people, but I believe that everyone should look to a higher purpose or a higher power, because those people that I'm surrounded by that do are much greater individuals, well-rounded people with better outlooks on life. Now, in the UK, we have, a good Muslim community as well. And I train, many Muslims that are into, Ramadan's coming up tomorrow. And their faith is fantastic, their faith and their belief and all that the Quran teaches them, and the way that they they cycle their lives because of that higher belief, I think makes them a better person. And so I think it's very dependent on anyone. I would never listen, I never followed God until that accident happened. I've always believed that something was there. I think it makes us feel a little bit more cozy at night, that perhaps someone else is watching over us if everything ends. But, I think that realistically, when you look at your life, if you can see the greater picture and have faith in something, then you're not just this tiny little dot of existence.
I love that answer. I love that answer. Because you said something, people that you surround yourself with that believe in a higher power, call it what you want, God, Allah, the universe, and Native American, right? The Great Spirit, whatever it may be, said something key, which was there just seemed to be a happier people.
100%.
Man, that's so good. Guys, I need you to understand something. The accident he had, he said it, yeah, knee-jerk reaction, he caught it and he tore his bicep. No, listen to what he told me about the bicep. Tore the bicep right off, right during that training exercise. 3 surgeons told him, right? 3 surgeons went through multiple surgeries, could have been a career-ending. How bad? I mean, 3 surgery, but give us a little bit more in depth. How really bad, when you think about it now, how bad was that injury to your right bicep?
So, so because I've had so many injuries, Cameron, the bicep one was, not so bad, So, but like actually the healing and recovery of it was a lot easier because your arm's strapped here, so you can't do much with it. But listen, when you can't walk or move your arms and you can't brush your teeth, and then you still got one arm that you can do all of those things with, you're all right. It's not that bad. And so it wasn't the end of the world because I'd been through bigger injuries prior, but the bicep had actually split right down the middle, which is very rare. Bicep injury normally tears off at the insertion because the muscle's fat at the middle and comes thinner towards where it inserts. So it's normally the thinner point that pops off. But mine tore in the middle. So when I went to have surgery on it, and I would always recommend having surgery because your muscles are there for a reason. If you leave the muscle and don't have it surgery reattached, then it's going to flap about. It won't contract and you're not going to get the full use back out of it. So when I went to a surgeon, they just hadn't done them operations where I was explained that it was like sewing up 2 pieces of steak with some fishing line. So as soon as you pull on that, it's just going to tear through. And I went to the second consultant, take a second opinion. He wouldn't do the surgery either. So again, I'm creeping towards that, dark place where is this the end of my bodybuilding career? Because now one of my biceps flapping down by my, by bottom of my arm, looking like God knows what. So there's no symmetry whatsoever, which is huge in bodybuilding. And then, I didn't give up. I just kept researching the best surgeons, went right up to Harley Street, which is probably, you've heard of over there, but Harley Street's like our highest area of expertise in the UK, in London, and found a surgeon that had done 4 or 5 of these recovery surgeries with rugby players and boxers that had done the same sort of thing. So he was happy to take me on and done the surgery. It was an ultra slow process to recover because, you are knitting back 2 pieces of meat. And the only thing that's going to heal that knit is time and scar tissue. So you have to allow the scar tissue to cement. So, it's little things like waking up in the middle of the night, go for a pee. We all do it. You get up in the night, you just push yourself off the bed to get out of bed. If you've done that, that's the end of your bicep. It would rip. So, it's little things like that you had to not do, like grab a glass of water with your right arm, it would rip at the early stages. So once I got past that and that recovered, it took time to get, like any of these injuries, it takes time to get your mojo back, to get the nerve back to take them exercises back on, because you feel like you're going to just rip it back into the place that it's just come from. But, again, we go back to small steps. You do the smallest little incremental improvements and you move forward. And where I have come across so many people that want to reclaim their fitness, their figure, their lean, like six-pack again, or reclaim their health, they're living in the past of the version they were when they were at college. And they used to do this and they used to be able to do that. And if they go back to trying to do any of that now, they won't be able to. They'll be able to do the most minuscule amount of that, but not see that that's one step in the right direction more than they're doing today. And so that these stories are actually helpful for me to convert clients into taking a step in the right direction. Because, if you meet someone that's come back and back and back and back again, and they still restart and reclaim themselves back up to a high peak and a high level, then why can't I, as a client with no injuries, all I've got is just my own like self-belief and accountability that's preventing me. So it has got a handy point in terms of, persuading people into achieving their best.
Guys, if you haven't read this book, go read it. It's called The Upper Limit by Gay Hendricks. What Neale is telling you is that his upper limit, his thought process of what he can achieve has been broken multiple times because of what he's been able to go through. His upper limit is universe. When he coaches and teaches and helps individuals become the best versions of themselves, it's easier to help them break through their upper limits. From what he just said, I haven't had any injuries, client. There's nothing wrong with me. You've been through hell, and yet you're still here. I think I can do a little bit more when Neale is probably telling him you can do a little more, give a little more, push a little harder, kick out the negative thought, allow the positive to come in. Absolutely huge. Let me ask this question, because obviously I can, because I'm the host. Where does this internal fire come from? From not letting, things, it's like the world would say, you had plenty of opportunities to just throw in the towel, call it quits. I'm going to try a less profession that's not so demanding on my body, but more on my mind. Where does this all fire, deep burn come from to help you fulfill your greatness?
That's a really good question, because I've looked at that. I've got a brother and he's a couple of years older than me, and I'm very much a go after it type of person. When I was at school, I was because I was very limited with cash funds as a kid growing up. We lived up in the council estate, etc. And we got food stamps, for your school dinners. I mean, you only get them when you're skint, right? So I swapped them food stamps. I sold them to the other kids in school for like less than their worth, to go and buy a load of bread and cheese and a toaster, and then make bread and cheese toasties on my lunch break and sell them to triple my money. And I've always had that way of looking at life. Like, what you do, you could always find a better way of earning more from it or being a greater version of yourself. And yet my brother isn't the same way minded. So I'm not sure where that comes from. We both had the same upbringing, but what I have always, really wanted to achieve is like to be the best version of an adult and a parent to my kids. So as I grew up, I always wanted to have boys. Unfortunately, I've got two boys, but I never had a dad. And so I never had that male dominant figure. And so I think that some of it comes from that. So that some of it, I believe, has come from that willing to be that version, that superhero, that somebody that your kids will look back and think, wow, my dad has been able to do this. My dad's been able to do that. My dad's been injured, but he doesn't let it faze him. My dad's come back from all of these things, because we all get knocks in life, no matter how great. And I've always wanted to instill that upon my kids and know that from an early age, that not having a role model meant that I would want to be what I think my best version of a role model, if I had had a dad, would have been.
You guys, did you catch that? He's saying that he wants his son, his two boys, to look at him as the role model. Nothing externally, nothing outside the home, nothing what they see on TV or on social media or anything else. Dad is the role model. Dad is the superhero. Think about that as a parent. Think about that as you that are, you young kids that are not married, or they're, you're not even dating, you're still running around. What does that thought process help you with on being that I want to be the best version I can for myself, so those that will follow me can say, that is my hero? Man, that is freaking good. Wow. Wow, that's good, Neale. We could stop, but obviously we won't, because we've got another tragedy. Shocking, I know. You guys are thinking, what more could go wrong? Right? What more? Now it's more of the mental battle. We talked about this a little bit more. I want to dive a little bit deep into, after all these that could have been career injuries, the physical side, when you and your ex-wife divorced, when you went through that divorce, take us through a little bit about the mental battle, because it's a lot different from the physical battle. Now you're dealing with an emotional side, an emotional attachment. Take us through how did you not allow that to pull you down, or did you? And if you did, how did you build out of it?
So that's a good question. So being brought up by just a single mum, and she acted as mum and dad for me. I'd never have ever thought I've been without, because she'd done a great job. But I've always seen her rather be happy on her own than be unhappy in a relationship. And I think there's lots of toxic, unhappy relationships. And I think we all can say we have friends and colleagues or people we know that talk bad of their other half, and I would always hate that scenario to be my life. And unless you're completely invested in your relationship, like you are in your job or into your children or whatever, I think that you've only got one life. You've got a short life. Mine's had some tragedies or tragic accidents in it, but you need to take like it was having that accident, that first motorbike accident, that made me realize that you need to take this by both hands and run with it and live the moments that you've got, because you don't know how long they're going to live. And if you're unhappy and you can't work things out, then go and be happy. And so it was the right decision for me, but we'd had a child at the time who was only young. And so my priority was making sure that he was happy. And I don't think, my point of view, as much as it's important to have a mother and father in a home, I don't think it's healthy for a child to grow up in a rowing household and an unhappy energy. But that's not, I think there's a strong argument for both. But your children are only so young for so long that you can kind of hide that from them when they get to an age where they see it. So it was at that age that I made the decision that it would be easier or better for my youngster, who's now my oldest boy, to not see that growing up. So, it was heartache. All I ever wanted as a kid was to live as old and as happily married as my nan and granddad, that fought through the war and, waited to come back from prison camp and all the rest of it, which no one does these days. No one's got an ounce of patience, So as if we talked things out and you can't make it happen, the best solution was, to live separately with joint custody of my eldest boy now.
You said something that's very untraditional and oftentimes can be very unpopular. You said something that when the child sees the negative energy in the home, I love how you use negative energy, because that's what it is. The fighting and the bickering, it is negative energy. It's better. You felt, in your opinion, that it was better to remove the negative energy so the child can then grow up in positive. When he goes to, visits mom, visits you, he's engulfed in positivity. Now, whether or not you choose to talk negatively about the other and vice versa, that's the adult decision. That's not the child's decision.
Yeah.
I love that point that you made, is children need to grow up in the most positive energy house possible. And you're right. If that's not it, and you try to work through it and work it out, it doesn't work. In your situation, it was best to say, let's just split so our kids can have a positive impact growing up. Oh man. Dang, that's good. How was that? Because I've been, obviously, I had a 2-year battle with my divorce. It was more on the custody side. Divorce side was pretty easy. That was a couple of months, but it was the whole. Have your children blossomed? Are they still seeing the effects of that currently? Like how have you, as a dad now, a single dad, how have you done the best you can to give them space and let them work through the process of their emotions?
Well, my eldest son was very good at living separate lives in each parent's home. So he never would bring anything across from one to another. And he knew that in this household, he gets treated like this, and in this household, he's treated like that. And so it was very easy, to be honest, because he was a very good, easy boy in order to go through that. But my custody battle with him was similar to yours. It wasn't as straightforward as a shared custody. It started that way. But unfortunately, I had to step in and take control of that situation because his mother weren't in a good fit space. After we'd been separated about a year or so, she tried to take her life. And so at that point, obviously, she's in hospital, and I had to take my son, Luca, back from her. And then that's when the custody battle really commenced. And so when she got her health back, she obviously wanted to see Luca again. And that's where we went through that whole ordeal of, is she fit enough? Is she well enough psychiatrically? Is her mental state in a good spot for him? And, and then, it went through the court battle, and it was a long and drawn out situation. But I never, and to both of our credits, we never badmouthed either one of us. We both knew, that we're both good parents. She just wasn't in the right frame of mind. And so I just needed to make sure that her health was back in the right spot. And it went on for a while. And actually, the courts awarded me full custody of my youngest boy from the age of 3.
That's awesome. Because now you did everything amicably you could. You saw, hey, look, this is the best decision. And it's panned out that way. It's panned out the way where you guys, no backbiting, no negative, no ill talk from both sides, which is fantastic. Because that's how it should be. That's how it should be when there's two adults make the decision. We can't get along, but let's focus on our children and help and make sure that they have everything that they need to be the best versions of themselves.
100%.
I need to ask this because now we have a little bit, right? You have had, if you guys haven't noticed from this entire conversation, massive, massive trials in your life, which you've been able to overcome. You've been able to push through both mentally, both emotionally, both, physically. You said something and you wrote something to me that, this last year, their mom unexpectedly died. Right? Leaving you all in shock. How now are you drawing on your experiences to help your child or your children cope with the loss of a mom?
It's tough. It's very hard. And I think the hardest thing for any parent is not to be able to take the pain away from your kids. And when they're in pain, and it's emotional pain, like we've just had Mother's Day, that was a long weekend for me. There was lots of tears. It just restirs everything, and it's hard. And I haven't got the answers. I want to take it away, but you can't You can't go and buy a PlayStation 5 and it's gone. The pain's gone. It's not as easy as that. You can't go on. Listen, I've took my son to Disneyland, to Egypt, on all sorts of holidays to just try and stem a couple of weeks of heartache. But it's not solving the problem. It's just putting a plaster over it. And it's just something that he's got to deal with, himself with time. He has count. I think one of the most important things is to speak about it. So I get him to speak to me. We speak about it. He has a counsellor, which he sees every 2 weeks, which helps as well. And he's got round to it, but there's always setbacks. You can be having a good few weeks running nice and smoothly, and then there'll be a reminder. He might have a play date with one of his friends, and their mum's super nice, made a lovely dinner, and it's just kicked him off because he remembers his mum used to be like that. So there's lots of constant reminders. It's tough, and to be honest, they're harder than all the injuries. For me, I think, listen, when you've got your own pain, that's one thing, but we can put up with our own pain, and I'm really good at putting up with pain. I'm covered in tattoos. I'm trained all the time. Like, pain is not a problem to me, but it's like your kid's pain is just something else that you can't take away. And my clients that train really hard, I will always say to them when they're trying to find that little extra, that extra push, and they've just not got it, that imagine if your kid's life was on the line, could you do 5 more reps? Could you do 10 more minutes? When you start looking things like that, could I? What am I pissing about for? Of course I could. So it's very tough, and it's hard because I can't control it, and I love control. Like, as a person and as a coach, and as my career is being in control of myself, my coming back from my own injuries, controlling people's diets and their training plans so they progress. Controls is a very nice, safe place to be, and when you haven't got it, it's a very hard place when you're left in limbo, just seeing what the next day brings. But I'll throw in some actual truth, which I don't think is I've got 2 boys. But when I got divorced, I remarried. So several years later, 5 years later or so, I remarried. And I remarried and had a second little boy with a different relationship. And so both my boys lived with me. And then unfortunately, after 4 or 5 years, we got divorced. And then my second wife, through COVID, through the stress of COVID, the depression, of whatever that it done to people. So going back 3 years now, she just decided to go to Mexico and never come back. So just left her son, or our son, which we had shared custody. And so now I'm left with 2 boys. One cries because he hasn't got a mum. The other one cries because his mum's left him. And now both of the boys are fighting, well, at least you've got a mum. And, it's a tough place at times. So all I can say to Cameron is I can just always tell them, I'll never leave you boys. I'm here for you no matter what. And, look at me. I've come back from all of these issues, and look at me today. You guys can do it too. I believe in you, so there's another story.
I was trying to throw something. Neale, stop it. I didn't know that.
No, I forgot. I didn't bring that part into the party, but didn't overwhelm you with too much info.
You guys listen, globally listen. We are in 9 countries. Everybody has struggles. Everybody has trials. Everybody has tribulations. This is why we do the show. This is why we bring people on like Neale. You see, you all the links. We'll have all the social media links. We'll have everything. You will go look at this man on the outside. You will see he is been chiseled. It's like a Greek god came down and chiseled him and said, boom, here you go. And we all look at him and go, good night. He's massive. But when you break it down bit by bit, he has been through physical rebuild multiple times, mental rebuild multiple times, spiritual rebuild multiple times. And now the hardest thing he's telling you that he has to do is consult 2 boys who are fighting. One whose mom is not on this earth, and one whose mom is on this earth, but is in nowhere near. Think about that. Think about what he just said the last little bit. And then ask yourself, like he asked his client, can you do one more for your kid? Can you do one more if your child's life depended on it? Could you do one more if you knew that it would put a smile on your kid's face? You don't have to go through all the divorce, the pain, none of that. You could be married. I have plenty of friends that have been married for multiple years, 20 plus years. But maybe, just maybe, you can have a little self-control and not eat and gorge yourself as much. Maybe get out and walk more. Maybe get out and go to the gym. Maybe get out and go see nature. Maybe put down the video game controller or the computer controller. Maybe put that down just a little bit so you can enjoy what you have in front of you. Flippin' cow. This is, I knew this was going to be an absolute banger, but this is life-altering, life-shattering. This is absolutely amazing. You will go back and listen to this multiple times. The beauty is I get to listen to this before it actually drops multiple times. Neale, a gem you are. I'm asking this question. I have to. Take me through your daily process. How, with all that you have on your plate, I want to know, take us into that space. What does your day look like?
So I left the police after 6 or 7 years and opened my own gym. And that was when I was married, and I had 2 gyms. But owning a gym, if anyone knows about it, absolutely sucks the time out of your day. You're there for 14 hours a day. I had a 24-hour gym, which was always manned. And your business only does, no matter what business is, as well as it can when the owner is present. When I was there, it would do fantastically well. So it would be important to me to be at the gym. Now, when I see these situations setting themselves up, I realize that this is not going to be viable for me to be able to take the kids to school, to pick them up from school, to take them to after school clubs, to run around Batham at night. With a gym, I would be there from 6 a.m. till 10, 11 at night. How am I going to be a father and a mother and, own a business? It's just not possible. So when you've got 2 parents, you can alter your shifts and work mornings, evenings, and work it around. But when you're on your own, I needed to make a different decision. So that's when I moved into the online space, knowing that as an online coach, my reach is far bigger. So I can reach worldwide. I have clients as far as Australia. Obviously, I'm in the UK, which is completely opposite side of the world. And it allowed me to be in control of my own diary, my own time, but still do what I love and still be around that industry. It was the best thing I ever done because I have absolutely no problems with any issues of childcare because I'm in charge of my time. So I can take my kids. So my day, to answer your question, looks like this. I get up at 5 a.m. and I'll do an hour of cardio and like deep work, which is like the promoting stuff for my business. So that's 2 hours before the kids need to get up for school. If I don't do that, then I have a slower time for the rest of the day. I think it's really important to set up your day from an early start. So, like setting up habits, and see, you got a book behind you, probably one of my favorites, Atomic Habits. And I think if anyone hasn't read that book, you need to get involved with that because that's absolutely life-changing and simplistic ways of setting up a greater version of you. And so if I get up early, I can get an hour of exercise in, which many people moan that they haven't got time, but you just need to get up earlier. You need to sleep faster. You need to find time, and you can make excuses. And most of the excuses I get are time and practicality. But if you, like as a single dad, I will then take them to school. I'll then I still personal train clients. I'll do 2 or 3 clients on the bounce straight after the school drop. That takes me to lunch. I'll then come back to my laptop and do 2 or 3 calls to the States where lots of clients in America. Then I'll go back and get my kids from school. Then it's dinner, bath, or that whole routine. And then I'll have 2 or 3 clients in the evening. Now, at that point, I'll either get one of the nannies in, like their grandparents in to cover, or the boys will have to come with me to the gym and do their homework at the gym for 2 hours while I train 2 clients. They've done it all their life. They grew up in my gym, so it's not too disassociated for them. So they'll do their homework there. Then I'll put them in bed when we get back, and then I'll do about 3 or 4 hours of phone calls to Canada with my clients in Canada, and I get to bed about 12 o'clock every night. I probably last watched a film on Netflix about a month ago, and I don't often get time to put the TV on because it's either TV or spending time with my kids. So obviously the children always win that race, right? And I think it's hugely important at the time you do get, when you are limited and you are the sole parent and you've got to do it all. And, you know, like what I haven't mentioned there in the course of a day is, well, what about your food shop? What about the laundry? What about them kids make mess? Brother, do they make mess? Like you're washing clothes like crazy, right? And they're spilling food, like, you know, there's no one else to help you anymore. So you can find excuses or you can find a way. And in life nowadays, everything's so convenient. You get food delivered, you can get prep meals delivered, you can get, you know, you've got no excuse. You haven't got to go and buy food and cook it. It's great if you have, but if you haven't got time, there's companies that will deliver you, you know, your macro counted meals to your door twice a week. There's lots of ways around lots of issues, you know, so you just have to find a way. When I was in the police force, I worked 12, 14-hour shifts and I worked nights, and them nights would take me from, say, 8 o'clock at night right through to 8 o'clock in the morning. And I'd come home, I'd walk the dog, I'd go to bed. When I woke up 4 hours sleep later, I'd walk the dog again. At that time, I'd cook a whole like tray of chicken in the oven, steam a load of rice in the rice cooker, a load of veg, come back, put all of that into tubs, say goodbye to the dog, go to work. On the way to the work, stop at the gym, do another 14 hours. Like that was the single life I had prior to this. So I've always been busy, but you've got to find a way of making it happen. And so there's no one else when you know the mums like left the boys, if you like. It was tough on them, but it was also a realization to me, like when I'd had them, even though we were separated, they were still half the onus was on them to bring the kids up the right way. Plus, you know, I've got half the time, or, you know, sometimes off over a week where I've got some time without the kids. So there's some freedom there from that, where now it's all encompassing. And for a little while, for a month or so, it was a smack in the face for me. It was like, oh shit, I've got to do all this now. Like, shit the bed. Like, this is big. Like, these 2 boys are going to grow up, because you grow up, I believe, in the way that your upbringing has been bestowed upon you. So your household, your parents, your upbringing turns you into the adult that you end up being. And I think when this happened last year, I realized that now it's up to me to make these boys really good boys going forward, because there's no one else to blame. There's no one else to do the job. So it was a bit of it was a very sort of nervous month for me to see about how we're going to do this, but you just got to find a way around it. And at the end of the day, when you are stuck with these impossibilities that they seem at times, I do always refer back to that motorbike accident, because when I was lying in that hospital for months and months on end, just moving my eyeballs and nothing else, I would give anything at that point to be able to be out of bed, looking after 2 kids, running them to school. Who wouldn't? Mm-hmm. So, you know, you've got to put things in perspective. It's not, you know, there are worse things in the world.
Breathe, everyone. Breathe. I got to breathe. Neale, that is you're freaking super. As you're drinking your Superman drink, I was literally saying, you are Superman. You are the definition of a no quit attitude. I cannot wait for people to respond and send a message about this. Your past clients, your current clients, and your future clients globally, that they listen to this and they say, this is the trainer that you are getting. This is the person that you are. When you get on those calls, when I see you at the gym, when you pay me that money, because you're going to pay him that money, you're going to listen to this and you're going to go, dang, I have no reason to complain. None. Now, we all do. Your story is unbelievable. Those listening to this go, man, I can't relate. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can relate because it's all about a mindset. It's all about a decision to make. Am I going to let little things am I going to trip over pebbles, or am I just going to step over them? And we're going to make mountains out of molehills. Go through the cliche thing. What Neale is telling you is he says, I want to bring your ship to where my ship is, so all ships rise with the tides. One of the best sayings out there. You are hearing it on the podcast. That is what he is doing. He is saying, I have taken on all kinds of stuff. I am still here, and I will make and extrapolate the best version of yourself. Man, this is so good. This is so freaking good, Neale. As we wrap up, as we have to, because of respecting of your time, tell us, Neale, tell us about what you're up to, what you're doing. People want to reach out to you. People want to get coaching. Give us those. We'll have all the links. Trust me, we'll have all the links on this. We'll have all the links on the post, the whole 9 yards. Tell us what you're up to, what you're going, and then how can we follow you? How can we be inspired by you? And then how can we reach out to you?
Yeah, lovely. Okay. So I mean, I live in the UK, but I coach people worldwide. I'd say probably 60, 70% of my clients are in America and Canada. I'm actually currently in preparation for my 5th Mr. Universe. So I'm still doing it. I've promised myself I will still do this till I'm 50. So I'm 47 this year. I've got another 3 years in the tank. I'm sure, my body still looks well enough to get on stage. And I've always set a standard, and I think there's not many fantastic physiques at 50. I want to be one of them before I, take the competition down, but I will never take exercise out of my life, obviously, and I don't think anyone should because of the longevity factors of it. Now, most people can reach me on Instagram, and my name there is just my name, Neale Cranwell. It's spelled slightly differently, so just check that out on the links below. Or you can email me at info@nealecranwell.co.uk. They're the easiest ways to get hold of me. I am on other platforms, but I don't tend to look into them as much. One thing I say to lots of my clients to sort of go away with, and maybe it'll help you guys out there, is when you feel like you're facing something you can't get past, I'll always say to people, whatever that might be, could be as small as eating breakfast, or it could be as big to you as running a marathon. But when you think you come up against a roadblock, they're never roadblocks, they're just speed bumps. And there's always a way around a speed bump. So don't ever get disheartened. Just always look at a brighter picture, and don't ever be afraid to ask for help. And, what we haven't talked on, Cameron, in all of this is through all of these recoveries and all of these tragedies, if you like, I've always looked for mentors or advisors or people to help me through it. So, the best basketball player, perhaps of all time, Michael Jordan, he had a coach. There's nothing wrong with reaching your hand out if it helps you round the corner a lot quicker than you would yourself.
I love that. Thank you for bringing that point up. That is an absolute gem of a point. Never be afraid to reach out for help. Never be afraid to get a mentor. Never be afraid to get somebody that you can go to that has really oftentimes is just a good listener. And that's great. Oh, man, that's so great. Guys, before we wrap this up, and let me tell you, this has been an absolute gem of a conversation, not even an interview, a conversation. Let me ask you this question, Neale. If you were to see your 5-year-old self today, what do you think he would say to you?
When I was 5, little baby 5, yeah? I don't know. He'd probably say that he wants to be a footballer and play for AC Milan or one of the big teams then, because that's what I was really into at 5 years old, was always sports and football. But yeah, I mean, I've got a 5-year-old, funnily enough. And when I ask him what he sees in his future, he wants to be an airline pilot.
I love that. Oh, that's so good. All right. As we wrap up, before I let anybody go, give me 5 books that you would recommend, whether they're books or podcasts. It could be personal development, spiritual, business, whatever it is may be, but just give me 5 books. And if you have not written a book yet, I'm going to tell you right now, 2024, Neale will drop his book. He may not be thinking about writing a book, but by golly, this needs to be a book.
It's funny, my brother come around yesterday and he said that to me, exactly that. So I've got lots of guides. So if anyone on your podcast wants a guide on like your ultimate chess guide or a sleep guide or health related guides, I've wrote lots of guides to help my clients, have something tangible. But they are just a guide. And my brother said to me last night, I don't know why you don't put all these together and sell it as a book. Amazon will do it for you. But to answer your question, top 5 books from me. I'm actually looking on my Audible list now because I think one of the best things we can do is de-associate ourselves with that blue screen. Get outside, like you said, go for an hour's walk, listen to a podcast or an Audible, get some brain functionality going as well as get some physical exercise. And I think it's a really good way of like detaching yourself from the stresses of the day. But probably my favorite book is the one I mentioned earlier, which was Atomic Habits. That's one of my favorites. What I'm reading at the moment is the 5 a.m. Club. I don't know if you've read that one. Boundless by Ben Green is my third sort of on the list. And then most people know this one, Think and Grow Rich.
I love it.
You heard that one, yeah.
Love it.
And then finally, the 10 Times Rule by Grant Cardone.
Grant Cardone, yep.
Yeah.
Oh.
And but one of my probably most over listened to books that I've listened to time and time again is The Wolf on Wall Street. Oh. You listen to that, but that guy is on fire.
He is on fire. I'm going to throw one in there because if you haven't, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Neale Neale brought it up. He's like, I got a brother. He even talked about it. I have a brother, and they both have kind of taken separate paths. I instantly thought of Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Phenomenal book. Phenomenal book. I need to ask this question. So the guides that you have, where do they go to grab those guides? How do they pay for them? Are they free? And I will tell you this, go watch his YouTube channel. We will have his YouTube channel here. I have watched it multiple times, and the advice that he gives on that is fantastic. His Instagram page is phenomenal. He goes through the science behind when you're doing a big bulk chest workout, which I actually watched 2 days ago. It was amazing, but it's more than just go and grind it out like a bunch of meathead. It is, why are you doing this specific work and what are you focusing on? He goes through the entire process. It is fantastic. So how do we get those guides that you have? Are they free? Are they downloadable? And if they are, we'll put the link here.
Yeah, so they are free. You just need to message me and I will send you the link across. And the best way to message me is through Instagram. And my Instagram is my most up-to-date current with terms of videos. So YouTube, it gets uploaded monthly, but these get uploaded daily. So there's always 5 stories a day and new reels every day. So some of them, if you just sign up to the Instagram, the books will become part of your reel because if you follow me, they'll come across your feed. But if you message me on any of the topics that you have to struggle with, I'm fairly sure I have a book after doing this job for 27 years that I've written to cure it. Not that it necessarily needs curing, but sometimes you just need some sort of structure to work around an issue. Remember, it's just a speed bump.
I love it. What a great way to end this, guys. This has been a phenomenal episode. Look, like it, share it, comment, DM Neale, DM me. Share this with somebody that you that needs to hear what I call a truth bomb. It's a punch right in your face, tells you to shut up, get off your butt, and go be special. Because if not, listen to this and play it to them. This is why this podcast last year was in the top 25% of the most shared globally. It is going to continue the trend. It's one of the fastest growing. It's because we have people like Neale who want to make this world better, who take time out of their day to give us masterclass knowledge. Man, this has been good. Guys, thank you so much. Neale, thank you. We love you. We appreciate you. This has been another episode of the Art Study of You. Have a wonderful day. I need to give a shout out to my biggest sponsor, Warrior Energy Drink. The reason why we partnered together is because we have the same mindset, with the same drive. We're for the people. We're about the people. Look, Warrior Energy Drink has 0 sugar options, and they got water as well. Low calories, great taste, very affordable, no crash, big energy fast, high in B vitamins, awesome design, culture design, 160 milligrams of caffeine. Other energy drinks have way too much, and they're always giving it back to their community. They're paying it forward. Partner with them, guys. Click the link below. Go get yourself your own Warrior Energy drink.